Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hi, and welcome to the ISO Show. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you haven't already subscribed, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future episodes. And also, if you like listening to the show, then it would be amazing if you could leave us with a comment. The reason for that is that it helps us to kind of share this podcast with a wider audience, believe it or not, because the popularity of our podcast grows based on the comments and likes and shares and subscribers. So yeah, obviously we do this because we're passionate about ISO standards, but it does take time to produce these podcasts. So if you could do that, it would really help us to get this out to a wider audience as well. Cool. Well, the topic for today is looking at the most popular ISO standards. So every year, the ISO.org produces some statistics, get my teeth back in, statistics, on the most popular standards globally. So that's based on the number of certificates that are issued, and it's based on standards and countries as well. So I just thought it might be interesting to highlight the top 10 most popular ISO standards across the globe. Now, this data is actually based on the 2022 survey. So the 2023 survey results won't be out until later this year. So that's why I just wanted to bring this to you at the beginning of this year in case you're planning on implementing any ISO standards. But we will be producing another podcast later on this year so that we can share the 2023 results. So what's the most popular standard globally? Well, there aren't any surprises here. It's still ISO 9001. Yep, 9001 is still top of the pops. It is the most popular standard globally, and it's not in decline. It's had an increase of 12% based on the previous year. So it's really interesting to see how this standard is still as popular as ever, and also to look at the sectors that we've seen increase in demand there. So there's been quite a lot when it comes to metal and fabricated metal products. So that's really high in numbers. And as ever, construction, wholesale and retail, and electrical and machinery and equipment. So they're all categories that are defined by ISO.org. So in terms of which countries ISO 9001 is most popular in, that is still China. They are head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to the number of certificates issued. Second is Italy. Then it's followed by India, Germany, and UK. So what's number 2 in the top 10? Well, I'm delighted to see that ISO 14001 is up there now as the second most popular standard globally. In fact, it's had a 21% increase in the previous year. So standards where this is also very popular is China and Japan, Italy and the UK, followed by Spain. And again, it's similar sectors where this is popular, but the most popular is construction, and also it covers other services, which obviously that's going to be covering a lot of professional services as well, which at Blackmores we've definitely seen an increase in demand across professional services for that standard. Now this is then followed by ISO 45001, the Occupational Health and Safety Management Standard. And this has had an even bigger increase in demand. That's 29% increase compared to the previous year. And in the top 5 countries there, we've also got Australia. And UK is actually number 3 as far as most popular countries is concerned. What we have noticed though, when Steph Churchman, our communications manager, was completing this research for us, and by the way, thank you very much, Steph, for pulling this information together, she highlighted the fact that agriculture is actually lagging behind quite significantly, which is a real concern considering that they have the worst death toll of any industry year on year. So yeah, numbers are extremely low as far as the health and safety standard is concerned there. So if any of our ISO show listeners would like to do something about that, then we would definitely support that. So moving on to a standard that we've definitely seen an increase in demand, which is the Information Security Standard, ISO 27001. And again, similar increase in numbers. I guess it's similar to ISO 14001, which is 21%. So again, big increase in demand here across all sectors, but primarily in the IT sector. Interestingly, transport, storage and communication is up there, along with financial services, real estate and renting. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Number 5 is the Food Safety Management Standard, ISO 22000. And this is where we're seeing interest in other countries in the top 5, such as Taiwan and Greece. But interestingly, there isn't an awful lot of sector-specific information available for this, but it's primarily, as we know, in any organisation that's producing food and also obviously the hospitality industry as well. So the 6th most popular standard is the Medical Devices Standard, which is ISO 13485. And this is the first time that we see the United States in the top 5. So clearly this is something that is becoming more and more popular in the States. And we're also seeing an increase in demand in France and Germany and Italy there. So yeah, 3 European countries in the top 5. I think one of the things that I've been most impressed with seeing when looking at this data is against all of the increases in demand, and by the way, none of the standards are in decline, which is showing that these standards are not only stable in terms of the level of interest, but they are increasing. So the reason that I'm really, really happy about the next one, which is, although it's still number 7 on the most popular list, ISO 50001 has seen an increase, which is the energy management standard, by the way. We have covered several podcasts on this in 2023. We've seen an increase in demand for this standard by 33%, which is really significant. And I'm hoping that it's as a result of businesses actually waking up, smelling the coffee, and actually doing something about climate change. So I'm absolutely delighted that this is number 7 now. So obviously this has seen an increase in interest. And we've got most of the European countries that are taking the lead, but China is still the top one, actually. So if you'd like to find out more about ISO 50001, I would definitely recommend going back to some of the podcasts that we did in 2023. The number 8 is ISO 20000, which is the Service Management Standard. So this is most popular in those countries where we are seeing quite a lot of call centre activity, and also where there is the demand for IT managed services as well. So I think we have to remember that this used to be an IT service management standard, but it is just a service management standard now. And we did cover a podcast on this last year again that went into more depth and explained that actually this is very relevant to any organisation that is offering a service. So it's one that's worth looking into. And the top 2 in terms of countries are China and the States for this particular standard, followed by India and then a couple of other European countries as well. I think the next one is probably the biggest surprise for me, actually. Number 9 is the Anti-Bribery Standard, ISO 37001. So at Blackmores, we have implemented this standard for a number of organisations in the construction and facilities management sector. But it's really interesting to see how it's in the top 10. But in terms of the trends for the countries where it's most popular, it completely bucks the trends of all the other ISO standards. So interestingly, Peru is number 1, followed by Italy, Indonesia, Korea and Brazil. So out of the top 5 countries, it's the first time really that we're seeing 4 of those countries. So when we looked into this, because I thought, this seems a bit strange. So we did some research on it, and that's because it is initially in 2017 in Peru, it was a voluntary requirement. But it looks as though it's becoming increasingly mandatory. So if we have any listeners in Peru, as we do have listeners that are across the globe, I'd love to hear from you and find out a little bit more about that. And last but not least, number 10 is the Business Continuity Standard, ISO 22301. Now, the country where this is most popular is in the UK. So we know, based on experience here at Blackmores, that a number of professional services and IT managed services have introduced the standard to provide resilience and continuity of service for their stakeholders. And other countries where this is popular is in India, China, Greece and Korea. In terms of the sectors where it's most popular globally, it's in information technology, but also in terms of storage, transport and communication, plus other services including financial and real estate. So that's it for the top 10, but I would like to mention a couple of other standards that are very close to those numbers to be in the top 10. One is ISO 55001, the Asset Management Standard. The other is ISO 20121, the Sustainable Event Management Standard. And following closely behind that is the Collaborative Relationship Management Standard, ISO 44001. So those three standards that I've just mentioned, we have produced podcasts on those in the past on the ISO show. So if you are interested in finding out more about asset management, sustainable events or collaborative relationship management, then please do go back and listen to those. So I hope you found that interesting. I think there's definitely been a few surprises there. But also, as I said, in terms of ISO 50001, I'm absolutely delighted that that energy management standard is up there and we've seen an increase in demand by 33%. I think that's just brilliant. So that's made me very happy today. Anyway, if you've enjoyed listening to the podcast, please do leave us with a review. And I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of the ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.